And is that Richard Sharp was the BBC chairman. The allegation is that he facilitated a meet between Simon Case, the cabinet secretary, Sam Blith, a Canadian businessman, and it is Canadian businessman Sam Blith who's turned up eventually the guarantor for the loan, and the beneficiary, of course, is Boris Johnson, who was the then UK Prime Minister, who secured a loan of £800,000. So this is where Richard Sharp and his role comes into play, and clearly the BBC boss now currently going to be investigated. The appointment as BBC chair, was there a quid pro quo that you help me get a guarantor so I'll get you the elevation? Is there a quid pro quo, and is Richard Sharp Boris Johnson's man in this entire system? So even as the BBC commentary takes an ideological battle position closer home, there is trouble brewing for BBC and its chairman in the UK itself. Let's try and go across to Sanjay Suri, who should be joining us live any moment. We've got Tushar Gupta and Dr. Vivek Kaul joining us at this point. Tushar Gupta, senior editor Swarajya, and Dr. Vivek Kaul, Hindu Renaissance activist. Dr. Vivek Kaul, is this now going to allow a lot of skeletons to tumble out of the closet? Is Richard Sharp just the first of many more allegations or investigations against the BBC and its functionaries?
Definitely, Anand. A lot of muck will come out, and the government itself is, hell-bent upon cleaning the BBC. That's what I've heard. And I spoke to a few lords, and we are also will be demonstrating against BBC on Sunday, all Indians, right, irrespective of our faith. I agree with you. Yes, there will be a cleaning up of BBC, definitely.
But the allegations around Richard Sharp, even though both Richard Sharp and Boris Johnson have brushed it aside, saying there is no aji-baji, but the connection is being drawn in a wire way. Did Richard Sharp facilitate a meeting, and was this person the cabinet secretary at that time when Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister? So has there been a response so far that has come from the person in concern, that is Simon Case?
I've kept my TV on and other things, but nothing has come up right now. But it is early days, it is only 11 o'clock in Britain. I think by 1 o'clock you should have response from politicians, lords, and the BBC. It's too early now. They, at around this time, they arrive to the Parliament, a House of Lords, and then they start talking. So by 1 o'clock, that is 2 hours from now, you should have a clear picture.
So the matter should heat up through the day because it's early morning. Sanjay Suri is with us. Tushar, before I come across to you, Sanjay Suri, it's early morning in the UK, but it looks like it's going to be a politically hot day.
Yes.
Well, actually, the matters are pretty clear already because look at simply the circumstances of this. Now, we have two inquiries underway. One is by an official inquiry that has been ordered by the government. The other is an internal inquiry that the BBC is carrying out. But look at the facts of the case. The fact is that Richard Sharp is a major donor to the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party is in government. The Conservative Party Prime Minister needs a credit facility of close to $1 million. Sharp makes the introduction that then makes that credit facility possible by securing a guarantor. So Boris Johnson gets a credit facility, and weeks later, Sharp gets the top job that he was looking for. The facts are quite clear and they're quite, sharp.
But how is the quid pro quo going to be established? There is a charge. You are saying it is established, but is this going to be a political battle? Is this going to now, mount the troubles not just for Boris Johnson, but also for Richard Sharp? Or will this Public Accounts Committee investigate it? Public Appointments Watchdog in Britain.
Well, the Public Appointments Watchdog is investigating this matter, and we should have an inquiry report fairly soon. In the meanwhile, we've had denials from Sharp and denials from Boris Johnson. Of course, denials from Boris Johnson, as we have learned to believe, don't carry a lot of weight. But certainly this is going to damage the whole appointment process and become a major embarrassment both for the BBC chairman and for Boris Johnson yet again. Boris Johnson is facing an inquiry already into Partygate, and now he's facing a second inquiry in parallel into this. This is all pointing to a very cozy arrangement between the government and the BBC. And of course, we all know that the government pays for the BBC. And
Yes.
the idea and the belief is that BBC would nevertheless be independent of the government. But this kind of connection that we are seeing calls that into question.
Now, does that also then put the intentions behind this? Was Sharp Boris Johnson's man? So will there be a certain agenda pushing that will happen, which would be inclined towards Boris Johnson? Is there a direct quid pro quo? All of these questions will also come. So you said one is the official inquiry. My other question to you, Sanjay, is this also going to become a political hot potato? Is the Labour going to now pick this up?
Inevitably, because there has been a pattern now of sleaze and cozy connections within the Conservative Party and between the Conservative Party and the Conservative government. Right at the top, there have been just too many instances of this, where you have senior Conservative leaders cutting the corners. We have an inquiry in parallel into the party chairman Zahawi, and that is over unpaid tax. He then paid the tax with a 30% fine, close to about £5 million. There are questions to be answered there, as Rishi Sunak said. So that inquiry is also underway. The cumulative impression really, and based on the facts arising, is that one after the other, these skeletons are tumbling out. You have senior Conservative Party members and senior people in government in an arrangement to support each other. This clearly is corruption at the top, and it's really now coming out into the open.
Yes, I think we are also, it's early morning, like you said, things will pick up and slowly reactions are coming in. We're standing by for a reaction by Richard Sharp itself, where he's trying to stay adamant and pose a very defiant face. But we know how this plays out. This is just the beginning, and a lot of dominoes will start rolling. And then what will happen is, will they all fall apart as 9 pins or 10 pins? That we'll have to see that. But let me ask Tushar Gupta. Tushar, if the BBC's appointments are prejudiced, then the matter started with the design itself, the intent itself of particularly pushing a narrative against erstwhile colonial states, and also getting influenced by other narrative pushers to try and set a particular narrative against some nations. In this case, especially against India, and under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, and especially Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It all started from the documentary. So before we get into this ideological battle that is panning out in India, it's this imperialistic push. And of course, the corruption, the quid pro quo, the bureaucracy, and all that surfacing the charges that are now emanating in the UK around the functioning appointments of the BBC.
Absolutely, Anand. I imagine the Telegraph or the Guardian to run a headline tomorrow that the BBC chairperson posts for sale for £800,000. Because the way this position has been commissioned, it raises serious questions about the credibility of the corporation, about the integrity, about what the narratives they are pushing, on whose behest they are pushing it. Now, we all saw the kind of narrative they had against India and other states also from an economic perspective. But particularly, I would like to talk about India. Suddenly, out of nowhere, when India has ascended to the G20 presidency, when you have delegates from all across the world coming to India, when you have investors showing interest to India, and when the United Kingdom's economy is in a turmoil, when India and UK are looking to put together a free trade agreement, suddenly out of nowhere, BBC releases a documentary. Now, the question I'm asking since day one is, if BBC had this evidence, why did it never make it to the Supreme Court of India in 20 years? Who is pushing this narrative? Who's financing this narrative? Who's backing this narrative? Because BBC is only a catalyst in this entire equation. Who is the one really pushing the strings? Who is the one really controlling the affairs? That is one question, Anand. And number two, Boris Johnson also wanted to make another push for the Prime Minister's post. Could this be about that also? BBC pushes a narrative against the Prime Minister of Britain, Rishi Sunak, because of his credentials, because of his origins. It could also be about that. So we have to look at it in multiple ways. One, the attack on Rishi Sunak, probably to dislodge him as the Conservative Party leader. Number two, the attack on India in the year of its G20 presidency. And number three, the most important question, who is financing this narrative behind the BBC? That's one thing we need to look forward to.
Well, the money trail will lead to some surprising corners, but right now the leadership trail itself is under scrutiny as to the appointments itself. There is a reaction coming in from Richard Sharp. Let's go across to that. Let's listen to what he had to say.
at least step aside while the review is in process?
I'm confident that he will determine that I was appointed on merit. That's obviously for him to conduct that investigation and process. It was a highly rigorous process, I can tell you, being part of it. A very tough interview, a very tough process to be part of, and so I'm comfortable. And there was an independent committee of people doing the interview, and they were asking very searching and challenging questions of me and the other candidates. And I'm sure that process was fully and carefully recorded, so it can be minuted and seen whether my appointment was done on merit. And I'm confident it will be seen that that was the case.
So Richard Sharp says it's after a lot of scrutiny, lot of thorough vetting process has undergone. It's all reported, it's all minuted, so I'll come out clean. I'm not going to quit. So he's going to brazen this out. Sanjay Suri, is that going to be possible for him to do?
Well, look at his denial a little closely, that he was not involved in the nitty-gritty and in the whole process of the arrangement of that guarantor for that credit facility. But that is not to be expected. In these matters, all you need is an introduction and a word, and the rest follows. These things are done discreetly, and no doubt this was handled discreetly. So the introduction was made, and then on, it was for the process to take its own course, having been facilitated. It is not necessary then for Sharp to go through every step, holding hands with those engaged in the process. So the question is whether that facilitation itself and that introduction triggered this easing of the credit facility for Boris Johnson, and that is what the inquiry will determine.
Right. Sanjay Suri, I thank you for your inputs. Now shifting focus closer home, as I'm going to request Vivek Paul and Tushar Gupta to stay on with us. So from that imperialist push and the narrative that was taken at that time to what it's now turned into an ideological battle here in India, ladies and gentlemen. The controversy surrounding this documentary titled The Modi Question continues. At a Hyderabad university, the documentary was screened on Saturday despite the center censoring it, the ABVP filing a complaint demanding strict action. Meanwhile, the political war of words also intensified, with Rahul Gandhi saying that the truth has a nasty habit of coming out. BJP losing no time, hitting out at the opposition, and said it is the bankruptcy of ideas which is driving them. Listen in.
If you read our scriptures, right? If you read Bhagavad Gita or you read the Upanishads, you will see in it, it's written that the truth cannot be hidden. The truth always comes out. So you can ban, you can suppress the press, you can control the institutions, you can use CBI, ED, all this stuff. But the truth is the truth. Truth shines bright. It has a nasty habit of coming out. So no amount of banning and oppression and frightening people is going to stop the truth from coming out.
What do you have to say about the government's moves on the BBC documentary?
It's very unfortunate. I mean, we are a democracy. Now you are reducing it to a democratic right to praise the Prime Minister, but if you want to criticize the Prime Minister, you're censored. Now this is hardly the symbol of democracy. If there is something in the film which is a lie, if they have morphed videos, if they have attributed to any individual portrayed in the film something which he has not said, then one can understand reaction from the government saying this is nothing but a lie. Now, propaganda for whom, why the BBC should want to become a propagandist, we don't know.
What do you have to say about the BJP president's comment in Kerala that left-affiliated students' wings are trying to screen this film over there?
Well, if they are, I'm not aware of whether they are or not. If they are, they have every right to do so.
Rishi Sunak distanced himself from the documentary, and then in fact the other leaders in the England have also condemned the research of the documentary and the editorial standards which BBC is claiming. But some of the units in our own country, units belonging to Congress party, are planning a screening of the same film.
Prime Minister Modi stands vindicated both in the Supreme Court and the court of the people. When an issue has been delved into threadbare and the highest court of the land has given it a clean chit, and so have the people of this country, then why this reliance and exuberance on a report that has been published by an external agency? This is not the first time that India's opposition is leaning on a malicious report published by a foreign media house. Is it the bankruptcy of ideas and political irrelevance that is driving them to lap up anything that comes by? How should a British broadcaster's documentary be above what the Supreme Court has already looked into? So this raises questions on the opposition and their politics.
And the BJP is now protesting against the screening of this documentary. This was screened at a law university. The news coming through from Kerala. Clearly, all left unions, it's become an ideological battle now. This documentary is being used. Largely, we are seeing SFI and also other left unions across various universities trying to push through screening of this documentary while it's being protested by BJP's student wings and other groups like the ABVP. Neetu Raghukumar now joins us with more details. Neetu, what's happening on ground and where is this?
Anand, we are right now in Manaviyam Street in Thiruvananthapuram. Here the Youth Congress here is organizing the screening of this documentary by the BBC that is ongoing right now. So when they began the screening, when the Youth Congress began the screening, there were protests from BJP. About 10 to 15 of the BJP workers had come on the other side of the road. There was sloganeering between the BJP workers and the Youth Congress workers, both sides standing on each side of the road and sloganeering. The police stopped both of them and the BJP workers were taken in the police vehicle from here. Earlier in the day, in the Thiruvananthapuram Government Law College, this documentary was screened, and also in Law College in Ernakulam and Maharaja's College in Ernakulam, and also in Kannur University. So in all the universities, this was screened by the SFI. Even in Ernakulam, there was some sloganeering between BJP. This was outside the college campus. When the BJP workers went towards the Law College, they were stopped. So both sides, again, they're standing and sloganeering. So that is what happened. Now, DYFI is also organizing a screening of this documentary across the state. So today in Thiruvananthapuram at 6 p.m. there is again this screening organized by the DYFI here in Thiruvananthapuram. There also it's expected that the BJP there might be protest from the BJP.
What is the situation currently, Neetu, quickly? Is the police there? Is there order? Is the screening now, has it been halted?
No, the screening has not been halted. The screening behind me, as we can see, that it is progressing at the moment peacefully. There is heavy police presence in the area. In this street has been blocked by the police on the other hand side, making sure that there is no untoward incidents happening. There was some sloganeering earlier, but now things are smooth here, and the screening of the documentary is progressing peacefully here in Thiruvananthapuram, and this is a screening which has been organized by the Youth Congress.
Right, so the Youth Congress organizing it. Like I said, it's an ideological battle. Largely left organizations have picked it up. Left-leaning outfits have picked it up. The Congress has now picked it up. It's become an ideological battle, what was perhaps released with an imperialist design or a push there. Dr. Vivek Kaul and Tushar Gupta also with us. So Tushar, so it's Modi betas all together now wanting this documentary to be pushed. Whether it is devoid of fact or not has now become irrelevant. Why wouldn't these organizations turn around and say, is this documentary actually portraying the real picture? And if it is not, why should they peddle it?
You know what I don't understand? The opposition parties, be it the Congress or Kejriwal, whoever, they sit and question the army every day over the surgical strikes. They do not believe the institutions of the land. But a foreign corporation whose chairperson is, being charged for corruption, they believe that organization on a coverage of an issue that was settled in the highest court of India. I do not understand this hypocrisy that you do not want to, depend upon the judgment of the institution of the land, but you want to trust a foreign corporation. Now, politically speaking, Anand, this documentary won't dent Modi's prospects. In fact, it will surface the imperial designs, as you rightly call it, that the foreign or the Western media has against India's growth. But my worry is it might be used by the opposition parties to stir a law and order situation on the ground. That is my major worry. We already are seeing what is happening at the campuses where a screening is being pushed as it has been censored by the government. That is where my worry lies. Politically, this documentary is irrelevant. Factually, this documentary is irrelevant. What is relevant for the baiters and for the ones pushing it is to stir a law and order situation on the ground by citing a case, and I repeat this, by citing a case that has been settled in the Supreme Court, where a clean chit has been given to the Prime Minister, and where the Supreme Court has observed that there was a lobby who was using to victims to peddle their own agenda.
No, these are outfits, Dr. Vivek Kaul, who in the past have themselves stopped the release of not just movies, documentaries. They have also censored and brought down governments which did not agree with them across states. These are outfits who themselves will not allow any other idea but theirs to proliferate and to be propagated in areas where they exercise a certain rule. And look what they are doing today. And they are also picking up a product because they want to settle a political score or fight an ideological battle. They are picking up a product that's being pushed with a devious design, not just against Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but with an intent to also further malign India. Is this lost on people?
They are the same anti-India group, the anti-CA gang. And they should know that during Modi's time, there have been no rights. The communal rights are history. You know, when I was growing up during Congress time, the communal rights would happen every 2-3 months, whether it was Meerut, UP, Hyderabad used to have communal rights. During Modi's time, I have not heard of any communal right. So these people are frustrated. They just want to be in power, back. And they are damaging Modi. But Modi, as Tusharji said, Modi won't be defeated. And our BBC is also raking up a 20 years old issue, which has been settled in Supreme Court and SIT. So tonight also there is a part 2 of the BBC documentary, which I think will concentrate on CAA, and again there will be an anti-Modi slant into it. So Modi won't be affected. The people who vote for Modi will always vote for Modi, and even the floating voters will see that there is an anti-India tirade. So I don't think Modi, he is right. Modi won't be affected electorally. As an unbiased person, I'm telling you.
So the idea is not whether it affects PM Modi or not. It's about why use international media and international platforms who want to peddle a narrative about our country and use that when you know the information there is not complete, is factually incorrect. Or perhaps economical with the truth. That's another question. Like I said, imperialist design world over, and it started from there, and it's now snowballing into an ideological battle, as all those opposed to the BJP, opposed to Prime Minister Modi, or those who are traditionally Modi baiters, are now picking this documentary and want to run with it across campuses in our country. Vivek ji, thank you very much. I have to move on quickly because we're getting a big update where even though Sri Lanka politics claims that they are non-aligned, supportive of all countries, and they prioritize Buddhism, on the 11th of January 2023, a number of Chinese diplomats and their entire charge of affairs, Hu Wei, hurried to Malawatu chapter in Kandy. They have warned the high prelates, that is the Buddhist priests there, not to host His Holiness the Dalai Lama because they are engaged in a dispute with him. Now this is counter to China's pledge to the world that it will not meddle in the domestic or foreign affairs of any country, and that includes also the religious choices and who they choose to give bring there as guests. So this is a big development that has come through, where the Chinese are now trying to thwart and stop the travel of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, one of the biggest beacons of Buddhism across the world, to Sri Lanka, which is also where the primary largest religion is Buddhism. Lagyari Namgyal Dolkar, who's the MP and also president of the Association of Former Tibetan Political Prisoners, Guchushum Tibet Movement, is with us. Namaste. How would you respond to this?
Hello, and I would like to say that what Chinese Communist Party is doing does not surprise me a bit in any manner, because we are talking. But I think what is the reality on ground is that this group, this devious country that claims to uphold religious freedom, that claims to hold the position in the United Nations Security Council, is the same organization that finds a man, a simple Buddhist man, traveling around the world, spreading the message of peace and compassion, love. They find him a threat. And we are talking about a free movement of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and finding that a threat for them. So I would say is that, what I would say is, except for what is happening within Asia, in India, His Holiness, wherever he wishes to travel, should be up to him and the particular government and not the Chinese Communist Party. But what we are looking at is how Chinese Communist Party is looking into how they can misuse their power of the loans that they have given to various nations and use that against them to control their minds, to control their decisions. And this is exactly what is happening in Sri Lanka. With the loans that they are drowned in, they're using that to pressure Sri Lankan government into making sure that His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama does not get to freely travel to speak about love, compassion, and Buddhism. So it's just preposterous to me. But then this is Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping.
What would you expect from the Sri Lankans? They have allowed the Chinese to come there and peddle their narrative and also try and, pressure the prelates of a certain chapter in Kandy. What would you request Sri Lanka to do? Do you think Sri Lanka will back down?
I would humbly request them to prove themselves as a free and sovereign nation. A free, sovereign, and a Buddhist nation that would, send their invitation to the most renowned Buddhist teacher of the world to openly decide for themselves whether they want to turn this issue, this religious issue, into political matter and become a pawn to Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping. So it's entirely up to them. I would humbly request them to please stand up for yourself. Please stand up for the sovereignty of your nation, and you ought to decide for yourself what you wish to do for your own country and not allow Chinese Communist Party to suppress you. Because once you listen to this condition, there are going to be many more coming on the way, and that is not going to be good for the sovereign power of Sri Lanka.
You blink once, you bend forever, you blink forever. So that's what's going to happen. Will Sri Lanka stand up? That's the big question. It's a test of a Buddhist nation, whether or not they honor the invite that they've sent to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And it's a test for this entire region, because India has given full support. India also is proud that His Holiness the Dalai Lama resides here. But we'll have to see whether or not Sri Lanka makes an official statement to underline the invite that's been extended to His Holiness. Thank you very much for joining us, Ms. Dolkar. We're going to take a very, very short break here on The Nation at 5. We turn the spotlight to another failed state. Steeped in penury, their Prime Minister is resorting to prose and a performance. Stay with us.
All patiently waiting. Lieutenant General Kulkarni, as somebody who's been lifelong in the armed forces, when you see this kind of political commentary coming in from major opposition parties, it's not just the Congress. We've seen Arvind Kejriwal ask questions or proof, supposedly, for the surgical strikes. We have seen numerous other leaders. I don't want to quote each of them, whether it was Randeep Surjewala, Mr. P. Chidambaram, Kapil Sibal, who used to be in the Congress at that point of time, all asking questions about or proof over the surgical strikes. Does it send out a message, particularly to our adversary countries, Pakistan, China, etc., that look, the polity in this country is divided and we can exploit that division? Whether it was an Imran Khan, whether it is a Xi Jinping, are they looking at these statements and saying that, look, they don't have a national consensus on as important an issue as national security, so we can exploit those divisions within? Does that message go across?
Thank you, Zaka. I think yes. These are all irresponsible statements. And definitely the enemy takes advantage of it. They see that within the country, because we are a democracy, there are all kinds of talks and all kinds of views, and so, blatantly being said so, which is highly incorrect. Because you understand who are our enemy, China, where everything is controlled. Who was the second enemy, Pakistan, where everything is governed by the army there. And well, Pakistan uses terrorism as an instrument of state policy. Here in a democracy, everybody seems to air their views, which is incorrect, highly irresponsible, definitely counterproductive, and something of which the enemy would take advantage of. Now, let's take the case. All these, whether surgical strike, Balakot subsequently, or what's happened in Pulwama. Now, statements emanating that for Pulwama, you don't have prime minister, whoever it is. I'm apolitical. I've conducted all these kind of exercises. I know what it means. You don't take permission from the prime minister to move troops. These are administrative moves, which everybody takes. Should an incident like this happen? Well, it shouldn't have happened. But if it has happened, that's the reason why. A little bit of somewhere, something would have happened, and that is why. Now, to question these kind of things is absolutely irresponsible.
Sanjay, I mean, look at the optics. On a day when the country is celebrating Parakram Divas, we are honoring the legacy of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and the Indian National Army. You have the Prime Minister renaming 21 islands in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And then when these islands have been named after Paramveer Chakra awardees, many of them giving their life, making the supreme sacrifice for the country, for a Congress leader, a senior Congress leader, multiple-term chief minister in the past, to come out and say, where is the proof of Balakot strikes? I mean, it's tone-deaf. It's frankly, it's unpatriotic, and most importantly, it's politically counterproductive.
Well, Zaka, I'm not a counsel for Mr. Digvijay Singh, but I would like to make a very dispassionate statement. Number one, I don't think this is a very spectacular breaking news item, because not just the Congress, but several opposition parties had raised similar apprehensions around that time. But let me make one categorical statement. I believe in India's entire political history, if there is one party that has actually politicized the military, it's the BJP. And let's make a distinction here. I don't think any political party, any responsible leader has ever made a statement which is critical of the armed forces. For heaven's sake, I think they are the bravest in the country. They are amongst the, I would say, those who actually work with very limited kind of quality of armaments they need to defend our frontiers and to prevent us from terrorism. I think the question here is not about the armed forces at all, which the BJP does, shooting from the, the shoulders of the brave soldiers.
No, but by repeatedly asking for proof, that seems to be the same trope again and again, Sanjay, that by asking for proof, it's not just a political point. You're not just questioning the political executive. You are also questioning the action itself, the military action itself.
No, I just want to make one point, Zaka. Let us just take the example of this surgical strike that happened in 2016, which was led by the very intrepid Lieutenant General D.S. Huda. Mr. Huda was considered to be the principal architect behind that entire surgical strike. And I think the entire country is one on these matters. I don't think there's ever been any dispute on that. I think he also went on to say later on, and this is his words, not the Congress's words, but he said such surgical strikes or cross-border attacks across the line of actual control, the LOC, had happened several times, 6 to 8 times, even in the time of Mr. Vajpayee. So I believe the Modi government's muscular nationalism to try and appropriate everything that the armed forces do to make it a political spin is one of the unfortunate tragedies of our time.
The issue I thought was long settled, not least because, this was the biggest talking point in the 2019 general elections. The people of India voted, and I think it's overwhelmingly clear where they stand on this issue. But I want to ask Sanjay Verma, it's not just what Digvijay Singh said today. Rahul Gandhi said this in the aftermath of the surgical strikes, and I quote, "You are hiding behind the blood of our soldiers who have sacrificed their lives in Jammu and Kashmir. Our Jawans have given blood. They've carried out the surgical strikes. You are doing khoon ki dalali with the blood of our martyrs." Basically, what the Congress and, Digvijay Singh, Rahul Gandhi, they're all saying is, No one has used the armed forces for political powers like the Modi government has done, for political purposes like the Modi government has done, whether it was a surgical strike, the Balakot airstrikes, or of course, whatever we are seeing in the run-up to 2024.
Zaka, let me make it very clear that, when I hear Congresses, including the suspended variety like Sanjay Jha, I am actually amused. I am not, perturbed or agitated anymore, because I think the Congress has a history which is so unflattering when it comes to how it treats our brave hearts. And I'll quickly sum up, though this has been there in the public domain for a while now. Who called the ex-CDS, Bipin Rawat, who is no more, a Sadak ka Gunda? It was senior Congress leader Sandeep Dixit, the son of ex-Chief Minister of Delhi, Sheila Dixit, a long-time Congress veteran, who doubted the veracity.
Back on the nation at 5 with the spotlight trained on Pakistan, where this failed state, this terroristan, is also now fast hurtling towards a massive, massive economic crisis. So much so that the Prime Minister of the country is going around with a begging bowl and confessing that he literally begged the UAE for $1 billion in additional loan, while he's also trying to sing prose and turn out a performance on stage to his own constituency. Just look at the sorry state of affairs in this neighboring nation.
मैं अभी 2 दिन पहले यूएई से होके आया हूँ। वहाँ पर यूएई के जो सदर हैं, मेरे भाई जनाब मोहम्मद बिन जायद, उन्होंने इंतहाई मोहब्बत और शफकत से उन्होंने वो पेश आए। पहले मैंने फैसला किया था कि मजीद उनसे मैं कर्जा नहीं मांगूंगा, लेकिन मैंने फिर आखिरी वक्त फैसला किया और हिम्मत बांधी कि मैं उनसे मजीद मांगूं। तो मैंने कहा कि जनाब मेरे आप बड़े भाई हैं और मुझे बड़ी शर्म आ रही, लेकिन मजबूरी है, हमारे मामलात जो माली मामलात जो हैं आप जानते हैं, आप मुझे $1 अरब और दे दें।
The Pak economy is quite literally on a ventilator, ladies and gentlemen. We were down to just about $6 billion to $7 billion in reserves in 1990 when it was a massive economic crisis for Bharat. They are hurtling to below $4 billion in reserve. That's what's happening. High prices on gas and petrol. The prices are going to further increase. Inflation is the second highest in this region. The Prime Minister has called for a meeting of the federal cabinet in which some significant economic decisions are expected to be taken. The IMF is going to visit the next way, sometime next week. They are coming in, but will they extend the loan? Because unless Shehbaz Sharif and his government further increase taxes and also the prices of fuel, that's what we'll have to see, because IMF conditions are very, very stringent and it's only going to further the hardship on the people of Pakistan. Pakistan is also now set to make a repayment of $500 million debt to the Chinese commercial bank, the second in the past 7 days, which will push the reserves below $4 billion without any fresh injection. The Pak Textile Mills Association has reported a loss of 16.1 billion rupees due to a power outage yesterday. As per reports, around $4 billion worth of goods are stuck at different ports of Pakistan, and they are awaiting LC's clearance or letter of credit clearance, which Pakistan cannot give because they don't have the kind of bullion or foreign reserves at their disposal. Import of goods have reduced to $4.2 billion in December 2022. The number used to be the north of $6 billion prior to the LC compression. Production of goods at an estimate of 30% of factories has come to halt. Pakistan's weekly inflation has reached 32% right now. The Pakistani rupee continues to weaken against the US dollars, and it is now at an interbank rate of 231 rupees, Pakistani rupees, for every single US dollar. The current account deficit standing at $400 million in December 2022 and $1.2 billion for the second quarter. This is a nation in doldrums, financial doldrums at this point. Let's go across to our guests who are joining us at this point. We have Amjad Ayub Mirza and Dr. Monica Verma. Dr. Amjad Ayub Mirza, this nation is hurtling towards crisis, and the Prime Minister is resorting to pros and performance to keep his constituency happy. while he is unashamed about saying that all I did was beg to the UAE. I didn't want to beg, but I had no other choice but to beg. He's publicly admitting it.
Well, Pakistan now has a new identity, and that is of a begging bowl. And I think they should remove the map of Pakistan from the atlases and the map of the world and put a begging bowl image there instead. Pakistan is heading for crisis, yes, but now this crisis is heading towards its ultimate destiny, and which is the disintegration of Pakistan. You see, the worst thing now, which is happening over the past 2-3 days, is that Pakistan army officers are submitting their resignations after rumors that they have not been paid their salaries. More than 30 checkposts have been abandoned by Pakistan army in Balochistan because they don't want to fight with the Baloch Saramchars and they don't have the ammunition. And the ammunition, new ammunition, they don't have the money to buy. So this is what is happening. There's power cut. You mentioned that 30% to 40% of Pakistan industry has come to a standstill. Since yesterday, 100% of Pakistan industry is at standstill. And they cannot revive from the damage that has been done over the past 2 days, because there is no sustainable economic blueprint in front of them. I see that the Pakistan government has only two choices. One is that they default on all payments and announce that they have become bankrupt, or they just simply resign and get themselves replaced by a technocrat government. I don't see any way out of this crisis now.
Monica Verma, Pakistan will have to eventually turn to India. Shehbaz Sharif has made the first overture, but they will have to drop or stop being a terroristan. They will have to openly admit that they've been waging a proxy war which comes to a halt right away. They'll have to sign it on a document before anything to save the Pakistan economy is done by the Indian government or by India.
First of all, what Shehbaz Sharif said, I do not see that as an overture. Reason being, that it's a constant position that India has maintained that we are not going to talk about Kashmir now. It's already off the table with the revocation of Article 370 and with Kashmir being off the table. And Shehbaz Sharif is still mentioning it. He's saying that UAE may mediate, but there can be no talks with India unless Kashmir is not on the table. So this a long policy of linking Kashmir with state is something which is possible for India, Pakistan, as they stand today. Not just me, many scholars have been pointing out from a long time that Pakistan's economy is in shambles, their fiscal deficit, or their foreign exchange reserves, their exports are dwindling. There are so many problems with their economy, and one way to skirt that issue was to have healthy relations with its neighbors, because ultimately, we share a large contiguous border with Pakistan, and Indian and Pakistan economy have many complementary. But it's not the wrongdoing of India. In fact, it's not even in the hands of the civilian leadership of Pakistan. It's the military that calls the shots, as I've always repeated. And the military will never want trade stealing from Kashmir. If Pakistan is willing to stealing Kashmir from trade, if Pakistan is willing to desecuritize its economy and then come to India, probably a lot of hope. They can be paid, and then we see, how they can be a more integrated region.
No, you make a fair point, Monica Verma, and they have brought it upon themselves and they have to pay the price for it. There should be nobody who should bail them out at this point, because it's a sinkhole and you don't get anything in return, and nations are realizing that this is a failed state and its organization. We've just got more news coming through, and I'll come back to you on this, that it's not just non-Muslims, not just the minorities, that includes Hindus, Parsis, Sikhs, in Pakistan, but even Muslim sects like the Ahmadiyya are also not safe. On 22nd January at midnight, some unknown vandals desecrated Ahmadiyya graves at Ratan area, 89 GB Ratan in Faisalabad. They trespassed the graveyard, cut barbed wires. They even tried to torch some of the coffins and also some of the other items which are present there in the graveyard. A similar attack was also carried on the 20th of November in 2022, where they removed gravestones from 3 Ahmadiyya graves. So, Amjad Ayub Mirza, nobody is safe there. This Islamic Republic of Pakistan does not even respect the various sects of Islam.
No, not at all, not at all. You see, in Gilgit-Baltistan and Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir, history reminds us how the Pakistani Muslims, I mean, the massacre that took place in Mirpur between November 25th, 1947 and March 1948 was not conducted by Hindus, it was conducted by Pakistani Muslims. The massacre that has been conducted in Kashmir of the Kashmiri Pandits was conducted by Muslims. Name one genocide or attack that has been conducted by Hindus on Pakistani Muslims or on Kashmiri Muslims. None. You cannot find it because it never happened. So in Pakistan, the Shias are under attack, the Ismailis are under attack, the Qadianis are under attack. Every other sect apart from the Saudi Wahhabi sect is under attack. And in POJK, I can take you to villages where even today we are forced to live like 5,000 years ago. No electricity, no water, burning these forest wood and all that. So I think people are now realizing that the false narrative of Pakistan about India is fake, and the actual false narrative is propagated by Pakistan, and people are now calling for reunification of POJK and POGB with India. वो कह रहे हैं कारगिल रास्ते खोल दो, टूटे नाते जोड़ दो, and similar thing is happening in POJK, and you will see this time they are celebrating Kashmir Solidarity Day on 5th of February. You will see how people are going to use this day to attack Pakistani narrative, and they are going to call for Atta.
Now, very well said, and it's a sorry state of affairs, and they've not been able to uphold the rights of minorities in their country. They have the minority population has dwindled. They have not been able to even secure heritage sites that don't belong to Islam, be it Sikh religious places, Parsi religious places, or even temples, Hindu temples. They have not been, even Jain, they have not been able to do it. So it's a sorry state of affairs. We've got to take a very short break here on The Nation at 5. Plenty of news coming through. There is an update on the charge sheet filed in the case of the Shraddha Walker murder. There is also an update coming through where a British MP has now written to BBC. We'll get you those details after this break. Stay with us.
As national security, so we can exploit those divisions within. Does that message go across?
Thank you, Zaka. I think yes. These are all irresponsible statements, and definitely the enemy takes advantage of it. They see that within the country, because we are a democracy, there are all kinds of talks and all kinds of views, and so blatantly being said so, which is highly incorrect. Because you understand who are our enemy, China, where everything is controlled. Who is the second enemy, Pakistan, where everything is governed by the army there. And well, Pakistan uses terrorism as an instrument of state policy. Here in a democracy, everybody seems to air their views, which is incorrect, highly irresponsible, definitely counterproductive, and something of which the enemy would take advantage of. Now, let's take the case. All these, where the surgical strike, Balakot subsequently, or what's happened in Pulwama. Now, statements emanating that for Pulwama, you don't have Prime Minister, whoever it is. I'm apolitical. I've conducted all these kind of exercises. I know what it means. You don't take permission from the Prime Minister to move troops. These are administrative moves, which everybody takes. Should an incident like this happen? Well, it shouldn't have happened. But if it has happened, that's the reason why. A little bit of somewhere, something would have happened, and that is why. Now, to question these kind of things is absolutely irresponsible.
Sanjay, I mean, look at the optics. On a day when the country is celebrating Parakram Divas, we are honoring the legacy of Netaji Shehbaz Chandra Bose and the Indian National Army. You have the Prime Minister renaming 21 islands in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And then when these islands have been named after Paramveer Chakra awardees, many of them giving their life, making the supreme sacrifice for the country, for a Congress leader, a senior Congress leader, multiple-term chief minister in the past, to come out and say, where is the proof of Balakot strikes? I mean, it's tone deaf. It's frankly, it's unpatriotic. And most importantly, it's politically counterproductive.
Well, Zaka, I'm not a counsel for Mr. Digvijay Singh, but I would like to make a very dispassionate statement. Number one, I don't think this is a very spectacular breaking news item because not just the Congress, but several opposition parties had raised similar apprehensions around that time. But let me make one categorical statement. I believe in India's entire political history. If there is one party that has actually politicized the military, it's the BJP. And let's make a distinction here. I don't think any political party, any responsible leader has ever made a statement which is critical of the armed forces. For heaven's sake, I think they are the bravest in the country. They are amongst the, I would say, those who actually work with very limited kind of quality of armaments they need to defend our frontiers and to prevent us from terrorism. I think the question here is not about the armed forces at all, which the BJP does, shooting from the, the shoulders of the brave soldiers.
No, but by repeatedly asking for proof, that seems to be the same trope again and again, Sanjay, that by asking for proof, it's not just a political point. You're not just questioning the political executive. You are also questioning the action itself, the military action itself.
No, I just want to make one point, Zaka. Let us just take the example of this surgical strike that happened in 2016, which was led by the very intrepid Lieutenant General D.S. Huda. Mr. Huda was considered to be the principal architect behind that entire surgical strike. And I think the entire country is one on these matters. I don't think there's ever been any dispute on that. I think he also went on to say later on, and this is his words, not the Congress's words, where he said such surgical strikes or cross-border attacks across the line of actual control, the LOC, had happened several times, 6 to 8 times, even in the time of Mr. Vajpayee. So I believe the Modi government's muscular nationalism to try and appropriate everything that the armed forces do to make it a political spin is one of the unfortunate tragedies of our time.
The issue I thought was long settled, not least because, this was the biggest talking point in the 2019 general elections. The people of India voted. And I think it's overwhelmingly clear where they stand on this issue. But I want to ask Sanjay Verma, it's not just what Digvijay Singh said today. Rahul Gandhi said this in the aftermath of the surgical strikes, and I quote, "You are hiding behind the blood of our soldiers who have sacrificed their lives in Jammu and Kashmir. Our Jawans have given blood. They've carried out the surgical strikes. You are doing khoon ki dalali with the blood of our martyrs." Basically, what the Congress and, Digvijay Singh, Rahul Gandhi, they're all saying is, no one has used the armed forces for political powers like the Modi government has done, for political purposes like the Modi government has done, whether it was a surgical strike, the Balakot airstrikes, or of course, whatever we are seeing in the run-up to 2024.
Zaka, let me make it very clear that, when I hear Congresses, including the suspended variety like Sanjay Jha, I'm actually amused. I am not, perturbed or agitated anymore because I think the Congress has a history which is so unflattering when it comes to how it treats our brave hearts. And I'll quickly sum up, though this has been there in the public domain for a while now. Who called the ex-CDS, Bipin Rawat, who is no more, a Sadak ka Gunda? It was senior Congress leader Sandeep Dixit, the son of ex-Chief Minister of Delhi, Sheila Dixit, a long-time Congress veteran, who doubted the veracity of the surgical strike and ridiculed it with comments like "Khoon ki dalali." It was the Congress. And let me tell you that Digvijay Singh today has the audacity to say that there is no proof. I want to read out, a tweet put out by ANI on 29th September 2016, which reads thus. This was at 12:15 p.m. Indian Army has conducted surgical strikes on terror launch pads on the LOC. Significant casualties have been caused to Pakistan. Statement by DGMO. When the DGMO has spoken, when the then Defense Minister spoke, the Home Minister spoke, the Prime Minister spoke, why is it that you need more proof? Who do you want to give proof to you? I want to ask Digvijay Singh one question. Are you not the same person who after the Batna House encounter of 2008, along with your leader Sonia Gandhi, you shed copious tears. You did not shed copious tears for Mohan Chand Sharma, the brave police inspector who lost his life. You shed copious tears for the perpetrators of the Batla House attack, the Indian Mujahideen.
Okay.
Are you not the same Digvijay Singh, just a second, Zaka, who after the horrific 26/11 Mumbai terror attack, what did you say? ये तो RSS की साजिश थी. Had it not been for Tukaram Omle, who actually managed to lay his hands on Ajmal Kasab, who was then tried and put to death here, the RSS sazish.
We're back on with news coming through that British MP Lord Popat has now written a letter to the BBC, and we have the contents of the letter. This has been written today itself, and this is addressed to Mr. Tim Davie, Director General BBC, and it's been written by Lord Popat. This is what he's written. The BBC plays an important role in educating UK population and are a trusted source of information around the world. Therefore, I was shocked by the documentary produced by the BBC implicating the Honourable Prime Minister of India and Gujarat riots of 2002, which aired on the 17th of January 2023. The documentary was heavily one-sided and failed to reflect the series of events that have unfolded since the riots. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was cleared of his involvement by the Indian judiciary and Parliament, which helped to lead his re-election as a trusted leader. The UK is a tolerant place and a place where religious freedom is seen as vitally important. As part of this, I condemn the stirring up of religious hatred in the UK by failing to accurately represent the situation in India. This false representation has old wounds by creating hatred between British Hindus and Muslims by attempting to paint India as an intolerant nation where Muslims are persecuted. If this had been the case, the Muslims would have left India by now. On contrary, the Muslim population of India is now more than Pakistan's, and many Muslims from Bangladesh are moving to India because of the progress it is making. Please consider stopping the screening of the second part to avoid exasperating already tense situation between British Hindus and Muslims in many parts of our cities, and allow the BBC time to check the facts and ensuring reporting is accurate. From meeting you previously, I know you're keen to ensure BBC continues to represent the best of Britain. So please do ensure this documentary doesn't put a stain on that record. So asking BBC to hold part 2, go back, rework, research, get the facts right, and not be economical with truth or just present a lopsided version. That's what Lord Popat has written to the BBC. We're moving on. Little time, but quickly bringing you that Air India will contest the pilot's suspension case. This is with respect to the Shankar Mishra case. There are two cases, one incident that happened in November, one incident that happened in early December. And in the Shankar Mishra case is where the suspension of the pilot, Air India is going to contest that. We try and go across to Ridhima for more on this. Very clearly what Air India is saying in this. Ridhima is through with us. Yes, Ridhima. So Air India is going to contest the suspension of the pilot, the action that's taken by the DGCA at a time when the DGCA has fined it 10 lakh rupees for failing to report the matter.
Right. So, Anand, this is actually in case to the Shankar Mishra case, which happened on the 26th of November. And in this case, the DGCA has actually fined 30 lakh penalty. The 10 lakh penalty is the one that we've seen today, which was on the other episode, which happened on the 6th of December. But going back to this case, as you rightly pointed out, yes, now we're understanding in a big development. This is as part of the internal committee report that is now being filed by Air India. They're saying they're going to contest the 3-month suspension which was handed out by the DGCA. Remember, this is also in line from what we were hearing from the Cabin Crew Association yesterday. They had also criticized the move, asking for all the deroster members also to be brought back. So now this will be interesting to see how we see this panning out. As of now, we did know that one pilot had been given a 3-month suspension and a 30 lakh fine was levied on Air India. The reason that was levied was quickly, Anand, because DGCA felt that there was late reporting of the case to the
Well, in this case, they are saying that the complaint against the pilot was denial of upgrade. So they are saying that they're going to help in an appeal. I've run out of time, Ridhima. Thank you very much. Zaka is ready with Viewpoint. Stay with us.
Good evening, this is Viewpoint. I'm Zaka Jacob. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi has categorically distanced himself and his party from the comments made by Digvijay Singh on the Balakot airstrikes. But that has not stopped the BJP from latching onto those comments and saying that this is simply reflective of the larger Congress mentality. They have only not only shown the Congress in bad political light, reeking of political opportunism, if you will, but it is also questioning our armed forces, which is a patently anti-national act. Now, shouldn't the issue of national security, like in every democracy, be above politics? Rahul Gandhi has condemned Digvijay Singh and distanced his party from Digvijay Singh, but is that good enough? Why not go ahead and take action and set an example? But first, the story.
झूठ का बुलंदा से ये राज कर रहे हैं। सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक की बात करते हैं कि हमने इतने लोग मार गिराए, लेकिन प्रमाण कुछ नहीं।
I have got the greatest regard and respect for our defense forces.
I'm sorry to have to say this about a senior leader. He said a ridiculous thing.
जब राहुल गांधी ने कहा है, तो राहुल गांधी से कुछ सवाल पूछना है और देश को उनकी टिप्पणियों के बारे में दोबारा याद भी कराना है और उनसे पूछना है कि क्या आप इसको भी वापस लेंगे?
All right, let me go across to our guests who are joining us. Anila Singh, BJP spokesperson. Rohan Gupta of the Congress will be joining us. Dr. Tara Karta is former director of the National Security Council Secretariat. Lieutenant General retired KJ Singh is former General Officer Commanding-in-Chief of the Western Command. Anila Singh, let me start with you first. What Rahul Gandhi said today, categorically distancing the Congress party and himself from the comments made by Digvijay Singh. He said, and I quote, "The views of the party are generated from a conversation. Digvijay Singh's views are outlying views. They are not views held by the party. We're absolutely crystal clear. The armed forces do a job and they do that job exceptionally well. They don't need to be providing proof." Are you belaboring the point about Digvijay Singh now that Mr. Rahul Gandhi himself has come out and clarified that the Congress has nothing to do with what Mr. Digvijay Singh said?
My ram to everyone, and it is not the solo case of Mr. Digvijay Singh. Congress party is a habitual offender to insult our Indian army. They have been doing so. And in today's date, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, he can come in front and he can do a PC and then he can say it is a ridiculous statement made by Mr. Digvijay Singh. But who can forget that after a year lapsed of Balakot strike, he had